What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for more Death Wish coffee. Because this is probably the most complicated episode of min-maxing for fun and profit that's come down so far. I'll preface it. Yes, I'm okay. No one's threatened me to do this, but we made a full caster and I prioritized my ability to have 9th level spells over greatswords growth. Anyway, today, Wild-Eyed Changeling, we're catching up on all of those back first edition episodes of min-maxing for fun and profit. Requests I put my glasses on. I can't read my computer screen. Requests a dimensional Dervish build. I didn't know exactly how she phrased it. Obviously, this video is already done. Stop judging me, and be sure to like and subscribe for more sweet, sweet content. Seriously, this is probably the most fun I've had on a min-maxing for fun and profit since I woke my cat up and watched the blankets move and braced for impact. And hey, you know, patronage at any tier can get you a Google sheet that all this stuff is on. We've got a lot of new patrons, so I gotta shout those guys out today, but I also want to shout out my very first Kingmaker patron group, because I've learned how to Google sheet a little better because of them. Anyway, today's episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by Sapphire Crook. Here we go. Okay. So this build is crazy, this build is wonky, this build has gone all over the place. This build was like 5 things before I decided on what it would finally be. There was a point in time our arcane stuff came from the sorcerer, but I wanted to get the 2nd level spells faster. There was a point in time when our arcane casting came from the synthesist summoner, but let's be real, friends, that monster needs its own video. The goal of this build was to make a pretty good Gish that could bounce around using the dimensional Dervish and eventually dimensional Savant feats to provide value for itself. You're just Nightcrawler, poofing and popping all over the place, punching people, then poofing away. We'll talk about the dimensional feats as we get there. For our final class build, we're looking at 3 levels of Wizard, 2 levels of Unchained Rogue, all 10 levels of the Arcane Trickster Prestige class, and we're rounding it out with 5 levels of Eldritch Knight. The build still takes a little while to get online. To be honest, I've built around the dimensional feats in the past. It was my first patron build for a patron, actually, back in a House Divided. And you just take so long to get there, and there's so many feats that this was the exact feat chain that made Tommy think, elephant in the room might not be the worst idea ever. With that in mind, if you took the Eldritch Knight stuff before the Arcane Trickster stuff, your base attack requirements for the dimensional feats would come online about 4 levels faster by my calculations. That is to say, you'd be able to do Dimensional Dervish by 9th level instead of 13th level. So if you're worried that maybe your campaign won't last that long, consider going that over the route we did. That said, I really like Arcane Tricksters for what we're trying to do, and I'm building always 1 to 20 for the long game. Flavor to taste, of course, for our race. Of all the things I thought I'd ever pick, and I'll be real honest with you, there were a lot of things I wanted to pick over this, but kind of we had to do it. We will be playing a Gonzi. Yeah, do you even know what that is? Follow this card right up here. Because it's a real unique one, it's also a race with an intelligence neg, and we're trying to be a wizard. This was one of the reasons, with that charisma buff, I thought about a sorcerer for a little while, but we need 2nd level spells to qualify for the Arcane Trickster, so I'm going to say that the debuff to intelligence, though not what we wanted to see, is worth it because we can get where we're going faster. Also, the buff to Constitution looks real good when you consider 13 of our hit dice are d6s, and we want to be up close and personal. And finally, the Gonzi get to pick and choose a bunch of things in-house, and with Gonzi Oddity, grabbing weapon play, we get proficiency with all simple and martial weapons. Martial weapon proficiency is a prereq for the Eldritch Knight. This way we don't have to dip a random martial in order to make that go off for us. Also, this means you get to have a Valkyrie heritage, so like that's the coolest thing in the whole world. Magical Knack is definitely a trait you'll want to take, given that we will be bouncing around from our main casting class. Though that said, we do land at Wizard 17 for our spellcasting. Magical Knack will get us almost all the way there, and of course Magical Lineage is a thing, as is the one that never got eroded, Wayang Spellhunter. If your Game Master will allow you to turn a level 1 spell into a cantrip using these shenanigans. If not, we're grabbing 1 meta magic feat in this build, Certainly they still help, but we'll leave the second trait free as it is up to you. For the ability score adjustments, intelligence is our #1 priority. We want to invest more into it than our dexterity because our race will give us an int neg, with dex right behind, then con, then your wisdom, then your strength. Strength might actually play a role in this build a little more than I've given it credit. And in a higher point buy, if you think you can get away with having a little dex and not the ability to dodge, duck, initiative, reflex, so on and so forth, certainly some polymorph spells that give you a +10 to strength don't look horrible. Charisma at the bottom. Anyway, Wizard is first. We got 3 levels of it, but we want to take Wizard first so we can go ahead and get our school power. The teleportation school is our best friend because of the shift ability. At first level, you can teleport to a nearby space as a swift action as if using Dimension Door. This movement does not provoke an attack of opportunity. You must be able to see where you're going. You can't take other creatures with you except for familiars. This will allow you to move 5 feet for every 2 wizard levels you possess, so really ever only 10 feet. But on its own, the teleportation school's power is really good. Consider that that is a supernatural ability. So if you happen to get grappled at some point, stuck in an entangle and need to get out, you won't need to roll concentration as it is not spell-like. You can just whoop 5 feet out of somebody's arms as a swift action, almost as a free 5-foot step. Afterwards, you could 5-foot step, or you could charge, or whatever. But the primary reason we want it right now is so that we can qualify for the Dimensional Agility feat at level 1. The prereq for this bad boy is the ability to use Abundant Step or cast Dim Door, and okay, sure, by a very strict rules as written, there's no way a level 1 wizard can cast Dimension Door. But given that the ability that we're using functions as Dim Door, and it takes forever for this feat chain to get online anyway, and it's not like this feat is giving us immediately overpowered value at level 1, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and flub it just a little and say, because honestly this is the easy sell compared to the other things I'm gonna try to sell you on in this video, that we should be able to allow the wizard to use the teleportation sub-school as a prereq for this. Seriously, there's just a boatload of feats to get this online. Getting the prereqs out of the way now isn't so much about optimization so much as quality of life. After using Abundant Step or casting Dimension Door, you can take any actions that you have remaining on your turn. You also gain a +4 on concentration checks when casting teleportation spells. T is for tax, and that's what this feat is. Haken in Wrath of the Righteous will be running the dimensional feats on his character. And in Elephant in the Room, much like how Point Blank Shot is a feat you can take but not a prereq for all the other archery feats, because I don't know, maybe the dude with the bow wants to be more than 30 feet away. Huh, strange. Take it if you want, but it doesn't necessarily, in my games, count as a prereq. This video assumes you do not have access to Elephant in the Room, so we're just gonna put it in normally. We will take Step Up at level 3. Whenever an adjacent foe attempts to take a 5-foot step away, you may also make a 5-foot step as an immediate action, so long as you would end up next to them. If you take this step, you can't 5-foot during your next turn, and you subtract 5 feet from next turn's movement. Trying to get away from me? Nah. 5-foot step and teleport? Nah, and also it's a little more funny moving forward. This is basically just an early prereq. Anywho, levels 4 and 5 are Unchained Rogue levels, almost a Knife Master. We're 2-weapon fighting, so probably one of those weapons would be doing D8 sneak attacks, but there are 2 reasons ultimately why I decided the unarchetyped Unchained Rogue was better. We'll talk about those in a second. At level 5, we'll go ahead and grab Accomplished Sneak Attacker to raise our now 1d6 sneak attack from 2 rogue levels all the way up to 2, and we'll use our rogue talent for a combat feat, and we'll grab 2-weapon fighting. The early game for this character is probably a lot of like blur on myself, color spray on you, grease on you, and then get a little sneak attack in, which certainly is valid in low level play. Anyway, at level 7, Dimensional Assault. As a full round action, you use Abundant Step or cast Dim Door as a special charge. Doing so allows you to teleport up to double your current speed, up to the maximum distance allowed by the speller abilities, and make the attack normally allowed on a charge. I know, right? Super exciting. This one feels kind of crappy and prereqy as well, but consider that this will allow you to move 10 feet through someone to secret ninja power behind them, then start sneak attacking. Consider again how you can use this to charge past somebody, move up, move down, move over obstacles. Resolving in a flank is probably the key one here. The ability to jump over things, probably not the worst. At level 9, our 4th level of Arcane Trickster, we'll go ahead and grab ourselves Outflank. This is mostly for us, and you will see why in a minute. Of course, if you can convince your friends, honestly, to drop a +1 weapon cost on the training enchantment to give themselves Outflank, we all benefit from a +4 instead of a +2 when flanking. The more important one is whenever you score a critical hit against the flanked creature, it provokes an attack of opportunity from your ally. Certainly if we've come in with 2 Keen Kukris or whatever 15 to 20s we're dual wielding, we can set that up a lot, which everyone will love. But there's a greater reason why we have this, and we'll talk about that later. God, I've said that like 17 times now, and I'm sure all the GMs are gonna attack me in the comments when I tell you this one, because I am going to have to make a bit of an argument for it, but we'll get there when we get there. On the subject of the training enchantment, that +1 enchantment that gives you a free combat feat that you meet the prereqs for but cannot use as a prereq, put Outflank on that as soon as you are capable. If you are capable by level 7, which is possible, this is where we want to grab skew materials. I really wanted to be a tiefling so we could grab the bat guano when we fireball with our tail, but everything from the fact that we're dual wielding to the fact that sometimes we might be polymorphed seems to indicate to me, though there might be some magic item shenanigans somewhere that let us do this a little better, that we need this feat. Moving forward, Double Slice is next. That will allow us to do full damage with our offhand. Since we will be jamming the Agile enchantment on whatever it is we're using, I think it's more than fair to assume you can use your full dex instead of half your dex. It's a weird order of operations thing. Whether or not the character is adding their full strength but using dex, or if the using dex replaces strength. Again, we're investing pretty hard in this, so I think in this build, it's more than reasonable. By level 13, we'll finally have cracked a base attack bonus of 6. Remember, we could have got there 4 levels faster. I'm prioritizing Arcane Trickster stuff though. But at 13th, grab Dimensional Dervish, which says you can take a full attack, activating Abundant Step, or casting Dim Door as a swift action. At this point, we will have landed at 6th level spells. Dim Door was a long time ago. If you do, you can teleport up to twice your speed, up to the max distance allowed by the spell or ability, dividing the teleportation into increments you use before your first attack, between each attack, and after your last. You must teleport at least 5 feet each time you teleport. And this is kind of the 1-2 punch here. This isn't as cool as some of the other things, but this does allow the character to move around quite a lot in combat. Say you want to use your first attacks at highest BAB, right now we've got 3 with 2-weapon fighting. At the guy with the higher AC, then you want to yeet back to a wizard, stab the wizard, and then, so as not to leave yourself exposed, after the last attack, teleport back somewhere. Say you want to make sure you're setting up a flank every time. This feat will allow you to do that. Also, by the time we've hit these spells, we've got access to Wall of Force. I think it's hilarious to make a little box for yourself and teleport out of the box to attack, then back into the safety of the box once the full attack has resolved. It's probably a little better to put the bad guys in the penalty box, leave yourself a little room to teleport in and whap them, then let them get real mad, hit the thing they can't do anything about. But again, just the floating sitting box thing is hilarious to me. Improved 2-weapon fighting will be next, followed by Piranha Strike. Piranha Strike coming down at level 16 on our first Eldritch Knight level. Gotta say, I didn't think I would be taking Eldritch Knight on this when I first built it, but 5 levels of it here at the end will increase our base attack bonus by 5. The Eldritch Knight Prestige class will allow us to get our BAB up by 5, and we needed to get to 12 BAB for kind of a hilarious thing. It also will give us 4 levels worth of wizard spellcasting, and 2 extra combat feats, which for us hit at 16th and 20th, 1st and 5th of the Prestige class. Now let's get real weird. Dimensional Savant, the capstone of the dimensional feat chain, the reason we're taking Outflank, though it comes super late at a base attack of 9 or level 17. Again, this is something I'm sure you will always see value out of for a couple of reasons. Because with Dimensional Savant, whilst using Dimensional Dervish, you provide flanking from all squares you attack from. Flanking starts from the moment you make an attack until the start of your next turn. Everybody gets to go. You're flanking from those squares for 6 seconds. You can effectively flank with yourself and with multiple allies when using this feat. Now, this next bit is going to require us to reach into the 3.5 Player's Handbook, as well as a fun little editor's note hanging out on D20 PFSRD, because, in fact, you count as your own ally. Abilities that say allies gain a this will also affect you. Now, there are several things out there that will say, including yourself, in parentheticals, and there is no clear rules as written to be like, yes, this should work. I wanted to cite Inspire Courage from the Bard, but the Bard has those parentheticals. It also could be the case that this didn't get ported over, or it could be the case that it was just assumed to be ported over and we'd put the including yourself's parentheticals on things, but I've rambled a bunch. The 3.5 Player's Handbook on page 304 states that an ally is a creature friendly to you. In most cases, references to allies include yourself. To take it a step further, if you ask D20 PFSRD, and I'm not sure if this came from a forum or from the editors of that place themselves, you count as your own ally unless otherwise stated, or if doing so would make no sense or be impossible. Thus, your allies almost always means the same as you and your allies. With me on that? Now consider that Dimensional Savant says that you can effectively flank with yourself and with multiple allies when using Dervish after taking this feat. By that logic, you should be able to treat yourself as an ally for the purposes of the outflank feat, both in terms of a +4 when you yourself start night crawlering around someone, and in terms of should you confirm a critical hit, it provokes from all the squares you attack from. So in theory, this could trigger a boatload of attacks of opportunity because you are essentially in multiple places simultaneously. If the last attack in the full attack action's the one that confirmed, then they provoke back from every square you hit. This probably sounds a little crazy, but for those of you who might be on the fence, consider a couple things. First off, it took us to 17th level to pull this off. Could we have done it a little earlier? Yeah, sure. But not by much. We'd still be pushing towards the end of a game, and truthfully, a lot of games probably ended before you even got here. Consider also that this character is capable of casting 7th level spells, and next level will be capable of casting 8th level spells. Does that augment our ability to do this? Yeah, sure, of course it does. But it's also nowhere near the scariest thing in this character's toolbox. What we've done is set up an ability to throw down a bunch of sneak attack dice. Sure. Also, if all of our martial friends take outflank and truly talk to your people, get them to do this, it's great. We've set up the ability to maybe pass out some crits for them. And we'll do a lot of damage. Yeah, the amount of damage will scale depending on how many crits go off. And might that kill some stuff? Yes. But it will not end a combat in the same way high-level wizard spells will. At least this is fair. Consider that all of your intelligent monsters can probably just hold an attack action for when Nightcrawler pops into their space and then start swinging. Remember, we're almost entirely D6s. We've got 5 D10s from the Eldritch Knight and 2 D8s from the Unrogue, and that's it. My last point on this is consider that we have taken not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 feats to pull this off. The whole reason we went into Eldritch Knight was to make sure we had the BAB and the feats to be able to do this. Same's also true for the Rogue, getting us that combat feat. But all training enchantments and Rogue talents aside, a character gets 10 feats normally. In progression, we've used 40% of our feats to pull this off. Therefore, I think the interpretation of you count as your own ally, meaning that in this very niche, very special case, yes, you can outflank with yourself for value. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If your GM allows this, put combat reflexes on the training enchantment as well. Certainly you're gonna need it. Anyway, at 19th, finally, greater TWF. But then, lastly, hilarious of them all as a capstone, one of the reasons I wanted to make sure we had a BAB of 12 and the reason we took Step Up, Dimensional Step Up. Be sure to watch our Wrath of the Righteous run because Hawken is going to take this and probably going to jam Kieran in his pocket before we do it, and none of you metagame. He told me not to tell you, but it's too good. He wants to do the first one on his own. And also I'd like to thank Idaho Boros for pointing this feat out to me. With the prereqs, Dimensional Agility, Step Up, a BAB of 12, and the Abundant Step feature or the ability to dim door, once per day when an adjacent foe moves using a teleportation spell, spell-like ability, or similar ability, including things like a Shadow Dancer's Shadow Jump, you can follow them as an immediate action. This ability has no range limit. You simply appear adjacent to the target wherever the destination happens to be. You cannot use this ability to travel to another plane. This feat does not provide you any means of returning, nor does it grant you knowledge of where your foe is going, but in Wrath of the Righteous, one of the things I've learned, and one of the biggest hurdles that I've had to work on in that game and as a GM at large, is playing monsters with spellcasting ability. Oftentimes, if Tempe's got me blinded or debuffed or I can't do anything or I'm at like half health or less, my best strategy has been I'll take a 5-foot step and then teleport somewhere else. Now, since you only get the one immediate action, you can't step up to follow them, then dimensional step up to go. But if they try to teleport away in your face, the ability to follow them and finish the job is a hilarious capstone feat, in my opinion. It's just dumb. It's just real dumb powerful. Granted, by level 20, some things will be plane shifting, but I don't think necessarily everything will be. I think there will be more than a fair share of greater teleports. That assumes they're beat up, they want to get away from you. Nah, the big damage guy has followed right behind them. Now, by level 20, I'm assuming your friends can scry you and then follow you, but also, the Bracelet of Friends is a pretty fun little item that says the owner may designate one person known to him to be keyed to each of the 4 charms on this thing. The designation takes a standard action, but it lasts forever. When a charm is grasped and the name of the keyed individual is spoken, that person is called to the spot, appearing at a user's location along with his gear, so long as the bracelet and the bracelet's owner are on the same plane. The keyed individual knows who's attempted to teleport them, and it only functions on the willing, and it is a one-shot thing, but this also is a way both for the party to be like, he's gonna get killed, call him back, or for the guy who decided he wanted to teleport into the boss's lair to then bring his friends with him. It makes a weird, staggering cascade of standard actions. Person A uses their standard to grab person B, who then grabs the charm for person C, calls C, and so on and so forth. Oops, we're all there. Now, in the optimized party, absolutely 110% Nightcrawler is a switch hitter, because you've got full wizard casting, but you also like to punch people. You're almost closer to control with a side of switch hitting, to be honest, but we're assuming that the player who made this wants to spend most of their turns sneak attacking with their keen kukris or what have you. We'll end today with a couple of spells that are really, really cool for this. Certainly there's a lot more, and in the comments below, if you've got some sweet wizard spells and you can't just say wish, let us know. Scorching Gray is wonderful. Basically, as soon as we get it almost all the way through, we don't have as high of an intelligence as some of the other wizards, but 46 points of fire damage, plus your sneak attack damage, plus extra rays that do it all again stacks up really, really fast. Grab yourself as many meta magic rods as you can, and find some way to cheat having them in your hand. Hold one of the kukris in your teeth. I don't know, you are a pirate, I guess. So you can maximize these things, quicken these things, so on and so forth. I really want to do a big, here's the math of the damage for this build. I'm not gonna, because there's 20 different ways the damage could go. Just pretend it was great. But Sense Vitals at rounds per level will eventually tack 5d6 extra precision damage onto our character. On our own, we had 7 from Arcane Trickster and a couple of rogue levels, plus Accomplished Sneak Attacker. But that's 12d6 sneak attack every time you go off by caster level 15, or 18th level for us. Okay, fine, you got me. I'll do the math on that one really fast. Scorching Ray, without any shenanigans, will max out at 346 Ray. 12d6 from class stuff, 16 total from a fully buffed sneak attack on a Scorching Ray. Triple that, assuming all 3 of them connect. That's a whopping 48d6 of damage, averaging, casually, 168. Not bad, to say nothing of a Fireball, Lightning Bolt, which can all have extra Zotz's worth of sneak attack jammed on them. Lastly, in a higher point buy, I might consider not trying to do the Dexy thing. I know, right? Who am I and what have I done with me? in lieu of instead just having an enormous strength score, though I guess Fey Form 3 might actually find a diminutive creature to grab you a +8 size bonus to your dex. Consider also Form of the Dragon 3 in a higher point buy where you can afford to have a higher strength. A +10 size bonus to your strength if your strength was already good is of course that much better. Honestly, if we dumped our strength with a little bit of magic items, we could get an alright strength out of this, though I think our dex will be higher. And then 5 attacks. 1 bite, 2 claws, 2 wings, and 1 tail slap, all of which have sneak attack dice tied onto them. I think we all understand why that would be good, but in any case, what do y'all think? Have we played something like this before? How would you build it? Throw it down in the comments. Next week on Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, we're gonna take one out of history. The Hyakunin Gumi, Hanzo Hattori, a ninja with a gun, sneak attacking with a gun. It's better than you'd think, honestly. And friends, I will see you then.